Hello, I'm Kathy Chester, and this is Move It or Lose It, a podcast about all things that move the mind, body, spirit, and soul.
Okay, so welcome to another interview with I'm very excited today, our Move It or Lose It podcast with Mr. Tyler Campbell. Hello and welcome.
Listen, I'm captivated because I love the title, Move It or Lose It.
Lose It.
Simple and yet so profound. So
profound.
Thank you. Thank you. It is a joy to be here.
Yes, Tyler, I'm so excited to have you. I don't even know all the things to say. You are an amazing fire to be reckoned with. You have so many things that you bring to the MS community. Your talk show that you don't actually talk about sports. The love that I already have for you. Let's go before diagnosis. Okay.
Right.
Let's go before then. So let's talk about you. Who are you? Who is Tyler Campbell?
Tyler Campbell is what I like to call an introverted extrovert. And I'll say
like that.
Introvert first. Like, I guess I'm extroverted when I have to, but my first nature is honestly an introvert. I'm the kid who just so happened to have like athletic ability, but love nothing more in my adolescent and early years of my life than to watch DC and Marvel cartoons and comic books and read these pages of comic books. And I used to keep them in little plastic wrappers and had a briefcase for them. And I was very much that like nerdy kid, you know.
Well, I want to know something. Who is your favorite Marvel character?
So it will always be the Hulk. It will always be the Hulk.
That's what people call my husband.
Really? So I'm old school with it. So I remember like my parents having like the Lou Ferrigno, like the actual old shows. And so I just like this guy who was like he was indestructible, you know, and I thought that was really cool. So, you know, for me, that's who I was. And I got into sports late in my life, you know, but at my core, love novels, loved books, love writing, and love the joining of sentences. Love the foreign language of Latin.
Did you really? You love Latin?
Yeah, Quomodo agatis hodie. Tell him. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, Senatus Populusque Romani. I mean, I was really, I love Latin again because most of our English words, or even if you look at other love languages, they are derived from Latin words. So that's kind of, it all came together. So that's really who I am.
Did you know when you were young, did you ever want to be a preacher when you were young?
So never wanted to. And
because you'd have to speak.
Because you'd have to speak. And that's why I said introverted extrovert, because doing what I'm doing now, honey, it makes no sense. It's so far from Tyler would like to be in his books and be here or play my sport. I do what I do for you. And then I go home to my comfort zone, to my little bubble. So this now, even our conversation right now, this is nothing. This is totally against what sports or not. It definitely wasn't going to involve any of this. None of it.
Wow. So fast forward. So then you're a little kid, you're in your little shell area where you don't want to, you're in your comic books. And then you're in 7th grade, you're super quiet. You don't want to like know people. And so then how did you begin to break out of your shell a little bit? How did that start?
So I think I was forced. Okay. Introverted extrovert. So as I'm young, we never got to go to a restaurant where you could just have a family dinner or even go to like a McDonald's and just sit there and chill because everybody knew who
Why?
Dad
Who
was.
is your dad? What? Who
So
is
my
your dad?
father's his name is Earl Campbell. He's an NFL Hall of
Oh,
Famer
who's
and
that?
Heisman Trophy winner. Yeah,
That's
no
right.
kidding.
That's who he is.
So introverted, extrovert. So
Right.
I was birthed into a world where I had to be forced to
Right.
speak, to be respectful, and to,
Yes.
in these crowds of people, you speak, you actually get microphones put in front of your face early as a news or rate,
Right.
whatever you can, these specials. So everything was, it was so out of character, but you had to get with it because that's just the life that you were living.
Right. Now,
And it
did you have a
wasn't.
sibling?
I have an older brother.
Okay.
And so, I was just opposite, right? Actually, my older brother introduced me to the comic books. And as he got older, I got his older comics because
Okay.
he was way more athletic, very much more
Okay.
sports driven. Was second in the 200 meters as a sophomore, was
Okay.
getting multiple scholarships. So he was definitely that. And then Tyler was so different. Tyler
Really?
never let go of the comic book world. Sports were, they took me longer to get good at sports. I was a year ahead of where I was supposed to be. So instead of being a sixth grader, I should have been a fifth grader.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
that's where I was.
So very much puberty wise,
Yes.
I was very much behind. And so
now,
a
was
lot
your
of those
brother more
things.
extroverted than you were?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he actually, I would say at that point in time, had kind of like the same introvert type stuff, but did not mind the extrovert outlook. Whereas for me,
you were like,
totally
no.
minded it. I totally did.
Do you think a lot of that was because of your like having to be microphones and stuff so early?
I think also because I was trying to figure out who I was.
Yeah. In such a big presence of your
always dad. Just trying to figure
Yeah.
out, like very much like a thinker, right? And trying to, and things didn't, 1 + 1 didn't always equal 2 in life. And so when those instances happen, it caused me to just, kind of tighten the grip. And I grew up in a society where there were very few Black people. I know that in my grade, there was probably like 1 or 2 Black people.
Really?
I know in elementary school, it'd be like maybe 4. One was the janitor. And so there was automatically, socially, I knew that a lot of what I was experiencing out in the world, or problems that we discussed at home, those weren't the same conversations that my peers in class were having. So naturally, you learn to be even more introverted because the discussions you were having, they
weren't ones that were out in public.
Right. And so you didn't even bring those things up. So naturally, the introvert stuff just kept being pushed and stayed with me. So I don't want to say, there might have been a part of me that wanted to, but there was never really an environment for that level of acceptance that I grew up in. This is the way it was.
You said a lot about, you say a lot. I remember one of the quotes you said is that your family kind of motto was, what happens at home stays at home. Something like that. Am I saying it right?
Absolutely. And not just like the culture that you grow up with, which is why, therapy and things of that nature, or open table discussions within the Black community. We're trying to play catch up to make that even keel, because those things have been engraved from generations to generations. You keep things here and you don't let things escape from here into the real world. For your quote unquote protection, or for any other, or things that may bring harm or attention to, so that stuff was engraved. And so it wasn't that my parents were ever bad. It just was that this was culture. And
that's something that we very much don't understand. And so we very much appreciate topics and discussions where that's something that we can understand, because as you can see, very white, and you're very Black, something that we don't understand. And that at least I want to, and we'll talk about it after what my idea is, but we very much want to understand that, what it was like growing up in a house where you have topics, discussions that cannot go outside of this is for here. And it's for, as a parent, I'm sure you understand now, why that would have to be like that then. some things we
absolutely.
couldn't understand. It's like, why? But as a parent now, we get it and how different it was back then.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge.
Yeah.
And it's like those things that I struggle with. I'm
Right.
35 years old now. I had to go back.
35. You look like you're 25.
I
Yeah,
love it. I love it.
baby.
And thank you. And so it's like anybody else, MS or not,
Yeah.
I have had to go back and deal with 12-year-old Tyler.
Right.
And I've had to unpack things. I've had to apologize for things because the disease that we live in, we know that it's very much, stress does not bode well for us
No,
with MS or anybody,
does
right?
not.
And
Right.
so I had to figure out, okay, how can Tyler help Tyler? And the best way that Tyler can help Tyler outside of pharmaceutical or outside of a doctor's appointment is Tyler has to look at himself in the mirror and address things that went on in his adolescence that he
Right.
never let anybody else by, that I've
Right.
been carrying along this MS journey that has not been an easy journey, and you live with this journey. How
Right.
could I help my journey? And
Yes.
that was like really tough to know that we battle so much with MS.
Yeah.
The equilibrium, the optic neuritis,
Right.
the speech, the effect of our everyday well-being.
Yes.
And then to look at yourself and say, well, there's some stuff that you haven't addressed that's
Right.
been causing even a greater friction in your multiple
Right.
sclerosis
Because
life.
it feels as if we should
Yeah.
get like a pass. Because if you
Mhm.
got all this stuff, we should get a pass on the
I
other.
know that's right.
But I want to go back with you because we talked about, I want to go back to your before diagnosis.
Yes.
So before diagnosis, you played a little game. I don't know, was it baseball? No, football.
Football.
Okay.
Football.
So how
Got
did you
stuck
get
with
into it?
football.
Happened to be one of my favorite sport is football. So you got into football. So how was that? You just kind of walked into it, or
Oh,
your
hey,
dad said,
I live in Texas. My
I
dad
know.
did not want us to play
I know, I
football.
read that.
He
So I
did
love
not want
that.
us to play. And
So why did he not want
he
you
didn't
to?
want us to play because I think he knew that he wanted us to understand we were very talented kids with our own gifts
Yeah.
that weren't his. And for Pete's sake, my dad is an official hero in the state of Texas as declared by our state legislature.
Yeah.
So my dad is like Texas history.
He's the man.
Like, yeah,
Right.
it's a very big deal.
He'd be the man.
Yeah, he's an official hero of the
Yes.
of the state. He's the only living one that we have.
Yes.
So he wanted us to like discover life, like do our own things, like teach him new stuff because he's done football. What else can you guys do? What do you all enjoy? And
but
so
you all just kept go right.
we kept
football.
because your friends would play
Right.
it,
Sure.
even if they weren't having aspirations of being.
You're in Texas.
Yeah, we grew up in a stadium, a city that's a very prominent high school football team.
Right.
Like we were the first high school to have a jumbotron in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
That's how
Right.
that's how big of a Drew Brees went to my high school. Nick Foles went to my high school, like just a long lineage of great
that'd be
football players.
We went to Texas. I finally went for the first time. I hadn't been there ever. And we were in Austin.
Yeah.
And then I had driven over to San Antonio because that's where my niece lives.
Right down
so
the road.
it's just so big. There's so much. And I'm just like, football. Because like I told you, I lived in Tulsa for a bit.
Yeah.
And we would have so much fun just there. It's not as much as Texas, but still Oklahoma is Oklahoma.
It's Southern. It means something to people in the South. And we're talking about, it's not a male thing. It's it's a male female thing. It's a grandma thing. It's my brothers, it means a lot. Right.
Yes.
So I think the kids down here, whether you enjoy it or not, you're probably going to try it.
Yes.
Right. And so I tried it. When I tried it, I was terrible. It was horrible. Like it was different. I was very bad. Right. And that shifted when I got to like high school. I caught up puberty wise. I started learning the value of a work ethic.
Right.
And that's when the scene kind of changed for me. But those first years, honey, it was
so good.
And it was, again, you're dealing with your introverted kids. So when I got out there, the fact of being terrible, that really weighed upon me. That really saddened me. That really depressed me because everybody had a vision for my life.
Of how awesome you'd be.
Thought, because my brother was awesome, my dad was awesome at it, and I wasn't. So that led even more to keeping things internal and just that feeling of not feeling accepted or letting people down. Not to say that I did, it's just that's what the process of an adolescent child and the way you perceive the world. So
now, did you
when
express that at all then? Could you express that?
never to my parents, never
You
to my
didn't.
friends.
Okay.
No,
Wow.
I didn't know how.
Right.
Right.
Now, did your mom pick up that something was not right with you?
No, it was more so, parents they were always encouraging.
Yeah.
My mother was, definitely that Black mom who was like the loudest one in the stands and really like was all very much supportive of the kids. Like,
you want to hear something funny? My kids
ahead.
always told me that, you know what? You're like a Black mom.
Yeah.
I'm like, I thank you very much.
Yeah.
Like, you raised us like you're a Black mom. I'm like, well, thank you. So thank you.
It's a beautiful, and it's a beautiful thing. And it calls her to stand out in front of a white crowd.
Yes.
And I like, people would look at her like, but then as the course of the game, everybody would be singing her songs and her chants. And so, but it was very much, I just didn't know how,
right.
There was a gentleman, and I talked about it in one of my books, but one of the most haunting things that took place when I was 12 was there was a man by the name of James Byrd who was dragged behind a truck. A Black man was dragged behind a truck nearby the town where all my family's from, which is East Texas and Tyler. And he was walking home and he got picked up by guys in a pickup truck. They chained him, they strapped him up, and they dragged him for miles to his death. And I was 12. And so I used to have night terrors that I never told my family about. When cars would drive by in our white suburban neighborhood, I used to get off my bike and go hide in the woods because I didn't want to end up like James. And so all of those things are like taking place. That's why I said like the way I was viewing the world, it was very much like, don't say anything, don't talk, don't like. And so that kind of
don't
led
draw
to
any
those
attention
things.
to you.
Right. And please don't do any of that stuff. And so not being good at football created not having an outlet. When I got to high school, those things changed and I finally had a release. But again, I fell in love with football largely because I thought it was what I was supposed to do.
Right.
That's what my family does. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Not realizing the nerdy stuff was actually more important and part of who I was
going to be a big part of you. So fast forward. So then you're in high school. Yeah. So then when did you start getting calls and stuff? Like this was going to be a thing. Like they wanted you to, somebody was seeing some things in you in football that.
It was really cool. So I played fullback, which means you do mostly blocking. And I played that like my tenure. And I think one of our running backs my freshman year ended up getting I think he had some academic issues, right? And so I started, and when I started, I had like a kickoff return for a touchdown, like an 80-yard touchdown, and then I go in to class the next day on a Friday, and the varsity football coach was like, "Have you ever thought about playing varsity football?" And up until that point, understand it's like the ugly duckling kid. Like I never saw myself like, you know what I mean? And so when he said that, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, I'd love to. And so then I ended up getting put on varsity as a sophomore. I got hurt having knee surgery, so I missed all of my sophomore year. My junior year, because of my teammates and coaches and everybody else who joined in the fight, I ended up becoming the number 2 running back in the junior class. And so I was 15, turning 16 years old. I was the number 2 running back in my class. Adrian Peterson was number 1, who's still playing football to this day. So that's when my phone starts ringing. Like during the football season, like coaches are like calling and letters are showing up. And I remember getting
your dad like, oh no, here we go. Was he excited then?
Dad was just like, because of who he is, just like, man, be humble. I had watched my brother go through the recruiting process. My brother was now at the University of South Carolina running track.
Okay. At this time, that's where he was. Gotcha.
So that's where he was. So I kind of seen it. I just never thought it would happen to me. Right. And even with those letters, it was just like, I can't be this good because of the way
you felt about you.
Because the way I felt about me and had been this kid that was over here while everybody else was over here. So when all this stuff is happening, I can't believe it, And then Nick Saban was at LSU. I remember getting my mail from LSU. Tyrone Willingham was at Notre Dame. Ended up getting my mail from Notre Dame. There was a time when I saw.
Now, if you would have gone to Notre Dame, we would have had a problem.
I
I
would
would
have
have
been
been like, Notre Dame? No.
And so the only reason for me, it was a literature thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking like academics.
Well, yeah,
I was like, oh my gosh, Notre Dame has, and they had
Michigan.
They had, Michigan, that would have been bad. That would have been, no, I didn't get it. So Notre Dame had a black head coach.
Yeah.
And so
true. Right.
And so that was like, I had never had a black coach.
Right.
Like I never had. So that was another thing. But then I saw this team called San Diego State play on like a Thursday night. Like, they were playing like nobody really cared, but they had red and black uniforms.
And that was it.
And thinking to the mind of a 16-year-old self. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Not thinking that those uniforms could change.
Not even thinking. I love their helmets. And I was like, I want to go there. And they didn't recruit me. They didn't recruit me. And so I sent my film to San Diego State.
Do you not know who I am?
Didn't even matter. So I sent it there. I knew it was by California. They have the beach. They have In-N-Out Burger. I'd heard about In-N-Out Burger. You don't have social media back then. So it's like I had heard of In-N-Out Burger, right? And so I sent my mail there. I sent the film there. And like 3 weeks later, I had a scholarship offer from San Diego State University.
Love that.
I was like, that's where I want to go to school. And nobody understood that here because I was getting recruited by A&M. I was getting recruited by the Missouris, like all these other schools, right? And so San Diego State was like,
they're like, what?
Yeah. And so again, not fitting in, right? But that's the school I always wanted to go to.
Okay.
Always.
Yep. So then what was the trajectory? What happened then? Any setbacks?
Yes. So
in that time,
Tyler, with all the success and with people talking, Tyler didn't know how to handle that at all. 16-year-old Tyler.
Nor do most of us.
I didn't know it.
You don't know what to do.
People knowing who you are, newspaper articles, not just in your community, but within your city. Just around the state. And it was, I didn't know how to handle that. And so I started underage drinking. So I started drinking. I would drink Synchrom 7's gin. And the only reason
that's really like high end stuff too.
And I know. And see, again,
at 16, what do you get?
And so Mad the neighborhood, exactly, Mad Dog 2020, malt liquor, you know what I'm saying? No. And so the reason I found it was because I think we were at somebody else's house and I saw it. And I also noticed that nobody else drank it. And so that meant I could have, if I found an alcoholic beverage for me that nobody else, I didn't have to share. And then Snoop Dogg had come out with gin and juice, years back when I was growing up. And so I figured, okay, if I have to, and I'll take the gin and I'll mix it with Coke. Because if I did gin and juice in suburban neighborhood, you're going to try to drink that because you heard it in a rap song. Right. If I have gin and Coke, you'll be like, that doesn't make sense. And so I drank it, not for the taste even.
Not really, because I can't think that tasted good.
It doesn't. It was just to get to a feeling. And I didn't have to share my bottle with you. So that meant I could drink and reverse back to my introverted self. I could drink by myself. And not even have to be around you. And I get the same feeling after not even being around that many people, which was a recipe for disaster. So I ended up getting in trouble. I ended up going drunk to a basketball game, got in trouble with the police. I was a minor, consumed alcohol, and I was on a school campus. So I was sent through the alternative education system the remainder of my junior year. I spent it all there. So my dad made me call every single coach that recruited me. And I had to tell them that I was getting sent to the alternative system.
Ooh, and that's a good dad.
Because he wanted to teach me. He said, I'm raising a man of character underneath this roof. And if we don't catch this now, because I have a series like other families. I have alcoholism in my family. I have drug addictions in my family. Like everybody's family. Like we're not all perfect, right? No. It's all good. It's family.
If you find one, you're going to call me and tell me. We're going to interview them.
Perfect family. They're lying.
Absolutely.
So I think that knowing that type of stuff runs in my blood, they knew we had to get a hold
catch it right then.
This thing. And so I lost all of my scholarships. I lost everything. Nobody picked up the phone.
How did that feel then?
It felt like I'd finally found an identity.
Okay.
It felt like I had finally I don't know, I was a topic of a discussion. I was going to more of the parties, you know. I actually neglected a lot of the friends I had grown up with who really didn't mind the nerdy Tyler. Nerdy Tyler
Right,
was always
right.
accepted. So I actually neglected those people and
Yeah.
ran with another. And so it just, I was like, man, I've had everything I want. And then one bad decision, it's all
Yeah.
gone.
Right.
It was
That's
like,
such a great lesson. I know
yeah,
you talk about that. You
it was
give back.
crazy. It was crazy. It showed you how fast life
Right.
could. And I
Right.
think it was the beginning preparation,
Yeah.
honestly, for multiple sclerosis, because
Yeah.
we live life like it can be like this one day. And then
Right.
before you know it, you don't even
Change
hit
like that. Yes. 100%. You didn't even
100%.
know God was preparing you for that.
No, and I tell people all the time, I was like, you know, you'd be surprised if you look back over your life, your MS journey was getting prepped for you a
Oh, yeah.
long, long, long,
100%.
long time ago. Long time
Absolutely.
ago.
Such good advice.
Long time
It
ago.
may be why you're such a great speaker.
Just telling stories, loving stories, just like my
Oh,
J.R.
yeah.
Tolkien books and my C.S.
Yes.
Lewis books and all
Oh,
those
you are
enjoyed
preaching to
books.
the choir. I
Yeah.
love, give me some J.R. Tolkien, give me
Yeah.
some C.S. Lewis. I am in heaven.
Yeah.
So give me what's your favorite C.S. Lewis book?
Goodness. What's my favorite book? Oh God. It's gotta be The Lion. It's gotta be The
Yeah, I
Lion.
love
Which one?
language.
I think
But
that was my first. I think because that was my
was that your
first one.
first?
I think it was my first because I'd gotten in like sixth grade or like one of those
Yeah.
grades, and then
Right.
from there it became about the Chronicles and like the whole
Yes.
series and stuff. So I
Now, as
think
an adult, do you read him as I like Surprised by Joy?
yes, but because he's very spiritual, and I think a lot of
Yes.
people don't know that about C.S. Lewis,
No.
and he's got some of the greatest quotes that I
Oh
love and still
gosh,
live
yeah.
by. So I feel as far as honestly, okay, so JR is probably my favorite author,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So JR is probably my favorite author, but C.S. Lewis is probably the gentleman who's taught me the most
Yeah.
about relationships,
Yes.
treatment of people,
Mhm.
walking and applying faith that
Yes.
wasn't taught in like a church setting
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yes.
So he's probably
Exactly.
like somebody I take with me a lot more.
Yes. Yeah.
Because of the man
What's
he
your
is.
favorite J.R. Tolkien book?
Oh, so it's got, so I read backwards. So when I got into, so J.R. Tolkien happened because of alternative school.
Yeah, right.
Because all I could do was read. So J.R. Tolkien was the second series, the Tale of the Two Towers. And so I went there and then I read backwards. So I read backwards. I got that book, and then I read the first Lord of the Rings. Then I got to The Hobbit, and then I finished and went Return to the. So I went backwards, forwards, all the way around with J.R. Tolkien.
Gotcha. So which one was your favorite?
I would have to say it's always going to be my first one. So the Two Towers will always be my first one, because because it was a book that I really embraced and started researching him. And started it made me fall in love with him as a person and his journey and his story.
Don't you wish you could be like a, I'm going to get nerdy with you, a fly on like when they were having their when they were all in the room together, because
the Inklings.
Yes. Wouldn't you love to be, okay, we're getting nerdy out now.
No, it's way fine. I would have loved it. They were in Oxford, man.
I know.
They were in Oxford, and they were brilliant storytellers. So
I could nerd out with you big time.
Yeah. It's okay.
That's why the boys love me, because I have two boys and one girl.
Yeah.
And so, well, now we have 5. So now I have 2 stepkids. So I have 5 altogether. And I'm telling you, my boys and I get real nerdy about this stuff.
That's good.
And all 3 of my kids have the tree tattoo on their foot.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's awesome.
I know, it's fun. So now we'll fast forward, but now we'll try not to get nerdy out on.
It's
fine.
It's fine. You're fine, Mama Bear. You're doing.
And
good.
Then we could get Star Wars nerdy out, but we'll just pause. We'll put a pin in it. So I want to know about. So then all this happened, and you got smacked with the whole stuff, and this isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Your dad had you do the hard stuff, but the good stuff that you needed to do. So then you did end up going. Where'd you end up going?
Yeah. So I left after losing all the scholarships. I left to go to Pasadena City College, which is in Pasadena, California. And it was, it was, it was very divine. Like the guy from the coach came down trying to like grab last second players in Texas who weren't there. And so I had never heard of the school. And when I went there on a visit, I learned that, you know, Jackie Robinson went to school there, and I had never known that. And I didn't, you know, and it made me feel better about myself, because I was like, oh my gosh, Jackie Robinson went to a junior college before getting to UCLA, because in where I grew up, everybody was going to Harvard, they were going to Dartmouth, they were going to SMU, all these great, nice schools. And so obviously you can imagine saying you're going to a junior college was like, ugh, you know, what was it? Was
now, how many Black people were there?
So in my school, let me see. Oh, hold on one second. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So at my school, there were about
I hate that you have to do that count. Gosh.
Five black people. And
if you were with me in Detroit,
oh, it would have been totally different.
This would not be an issue.
It would be, hey, it would be like, what up, though? We doing good. And so
I'm like, how many black? Well, there's
5.
more than me. Like, I can't imagine that. I just can't imagine.
Yeah, 5. And so it was, so that was out going to Pasadena was like a joy, because it was everything that I wanted. It was culture. Yeah. It was, man, it was just a joy. Everybody was like, I saw more people that looked like me.
Yeah.
And I played football with everybody looking like me pretty much, you know? So it was awesome. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the culture. I was immersed. Obviously, you know, you go to California, West Coast, you know, you have to learn about gang culture. You have to learn about the colors and what to wear and what not to wear. Just learning the life of what so many other of the minority communities have to go through. Like, this is their everyday life. This is nothing new. This was new for me. And what was beautiful was that my teammates loved and embraced me. Everybody knew I was from the suburbs. Everybody knew your boy's out here green. So they would wrap me around and say,
like, you don't know anything. That.
Yeah,
we gotta teach you.
Yeah, don't go over here. Don't wear that over there. Don't say these words over here. So it was growth. And in that, it became a deeper love for my people. I love my heritage. I love my hair. I love, like, I just really, really had gotten all the stuff I had missed out on all those years of my life that I didn't grow up in. So junior college was probably like my favorite time in college.
That's awesome.
Even though we were broke, shopping at the 99-cent store, putting our money together.
Because it was 99 cents.
My roommates were from New Orleans. So at that time, New Orleans, you know, had been in and out of being the murder capital of the world. So they were happy.
How exciting that would be.
Yeah, they were happy because they got freed to be around something new, you know.
Exactly.
And so we used to get a kick out of seeing the palm trees. And so, but anyway, so I went to Pasadena City College. A lot of people don't talk about it. They'd rather, you know, flash forward, but that's, for me, that is some of my favorite times in my life. And just growing up and learning survival tactics, learning how to work with what you have, and really taking your schoolwork like seriously, because you want to get out of a junior college. That all
I think that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
And then what was the next spot? Where was after that?
So after San Diego, after Pasadena, I actually got a scholarship to San Diego State.
Oh, the place you wanted to go.
And I got my scholarship because one of the kids, one of their incoming athletes, lost their scholarship to San Diego State because of substance abuse issues. And so that's why the man up above has a sense of humor. Because that's what happened to me out of high school. But over this 2-year period of my life, senior year of high school, I lived by Rick Warren's Purpose Driven Life book. That was my favorite book. I started reading that when I was 16. It stayed with me.
Such a great book.
Yeah, and so I was clean. I no longer drank anymore. I I had started to learn how to become a leader, to really listen to people. And
where was your faith then, Tyler? Where would you say your faith was that then?
Faith was in, I gave my life to Christ when I was probably about 2 months after I got in trouble. When I was 16, I gave my life to Christ on a Palm Sunday. And so from then, as being baby Christian, everything for me leaving home was about, can you still stay committed when everybody else around you, you in college, not everybody's going to church on Sunday, right? Not everybody's like still reading the Bible, not everybody's. And so for me, it had shown me that I was like more than committed to my faith. And I was doing it all, by myself, and actually
becomes your own.
Taking other guys to church and noticing that it's okay to like speak about it. Because normally other people like kind of want or are curious to try to keep the same values they have, but they don't know if it's okay to talk about it. So once you say, hey, y'all trying to go to church, I had my one roommate, and his name was Jamal. And me and Jamal, we went to church. We read the Bible. I had an accountability partner. So my faith had it had soared because I was keeping my faith without people having to drag me to keep it, like without people reminding me to read this or do that. So faith wise, I'm on my own, and I'm okay being on my own. I know where my source is.
Well, like, you were actually getting even, I would say, bold about it.
Yes, very much so.
That was the beginning of your boldness and your speaking career that you didn't quite know you were going to have yet. But you were getting bold. And now, did you had that one accountability? Did you do any Bible studies in your college area?
Like for us, we didn't have cars, so we rode.
No, you're poor.
So yes, Earl Campbell's son was riding the bus off of Colorado Boulevard. Yeah,
because he was a good dad.
Yeah,
he was like you're not going to get this off.
So this is how we got around, And so when we needed to get a ride, it was about how can we talk about, who else was studying Christ on our football team.
Right.
And so that's what led to it. And it led to more open things. In junior college, a lot of the stuff that took place, reading the Bible, it was mainly done in our apartment. Done in our apartment. And it wasn't always me orchestrating it. It was just other guys. It really would come up when people would say, man, I don't know if that's true, or it don't really say that in the Bible. It's like, well, hold up. Let's go back and then that's how stuff organically would just kind of happen. But I was learning that. Because I even got hurt. I only played like 6 quarters of junior college football. So I learned through junior college that I could be a leader even without playing football. Like I could still, like people would still value me for me, or look to me for leadership or support, even without playing football. So it was more, I was learning to grow into just growing into Tyler. Because I thought football was always going to be the thing that forced a conversation. And I think in junior college, I learned not to.
And Tyler, I would say just,
well, thank you so much for joining us today on Move It or Lose It podcast, where you can again find us every Tuesday, and also wherever you like your podcast, whether it's Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Join us on that, and we can't wait to see you again. We're going to have a lot of exciting guests and working together. And as always, you'll hear us say at the end of every podcast, we are stronger together. So let's do it. Let's become stronger together.